My name's Erin Hatfield. I'm the Director of Communications at Yorkville University, and I am hosting Nicole today. Nicole is a proud graduate, as she self-described,
I
of
do.
the Bachelor of Business Administration at Yorkville University. You can see in her beautiful setting that she's in here that her parchment is right there behind her. So Nicole has been gracious enough to agree to do, it's going to be an interview format discussion with us today about how to do business in a virtual world. So Nicole, interestingly enough, is as well as being a graduate of the BBA, is a managing partner at Bare Slate Inc. And she is the co-host of the Ask More, Get More show. And one of the interesting facts that Nicole and I were talking about just before all of you joined us is that this show, Ask More, Get More, launched in March as kind of it was the catalyst to it was our current global climate. So Nicole, do you just want to just dive in and tell us about this show and how it came to be?
Yeah, well, like you said, Erin, thank you for having me, first of all. Love anything I can do for the school. I'd love Yorkville. So yeah, the Ask More, Get More show was actually started, like you said, in March because of the pandemic, largely in part because of it. Now, Bare Slate did already have a podcast where a lot of our teachings and concepts around core skills was going out. But at the time when the pandemic hit, Bare Slate is a social enterprise and we focus on access to education and learning because we're big believers in lifelong learning, as I'm sure everyone here can agree is important. And when the shutdown happened, a lot of our corporate training and in-person training and programs that were often facilitated in person, can't do that anymore, you got to stay home. And what we were noticing is that a lot of the conversations were around what's happening in the business world, how businesses are being affected, employees being laid off. And there's a lot of conversation about business, but nobody was actually speaking to business owners and subject matter experts and who was doing business, quote unquote, effectively, even though the shutdown was happening. So what we decided was if people aren't having the conversation, we'll just start having it ourselves. And so we started inviting CEOs in our network and subject matter experts and therapists and psychologists and organizational psychologists, inviting them on the show and saying, hey, can we ask you some questions? Can we get some insights? And it's taken off from there. And it's a full-on show that is produced 3 days a week. And there's also a podcast. So we have the second podcast as well. So it just taught us the importance of pivoting in business when things change that are beyond your control. And that's where that started. And we love it. We absolutely love it.
So prior to the launch of this show, can you tell us what your business was all about? Because your business, well, I don't want to give away the punchline, but your business is actually related to your time at Yorkville in a roundabout way. Can you tell us about your business?
Absolutely. So prior to the shutdown, again, I think all conversations now start out with prior to the shutdown and now. And so again, it was a focus on education and training. So Bare Slate is an approved training provider for the Ontario government. We're based in Ontario. And it's connected to the Canada-Ontario Jobs Grant. So it's part of the Highly Skilled Workforce Initiative. And what we did was we went in and trained employees and senior level on core skills. So what is a core skill? It's things like time management and goal setting and stress management and how it directly relates to you, yourself, and the business and your job and what you do. So a lot of that was facilitated in person. So like a lot of us are used to, you would go to a workshop, you would go to, a couple days long, just like in school, we would be in the front of an auditorium and speaking to people. I spoke a lot to CEO groups. So it was a lot of in-person work, right? But part of, like you said, the tie with Yorkville, when I went and decided to go back to university to get my business degree, I chose, and I don't think the in-person option was around yet when I did it, But I specifically chose Yorkville for the reputation and the fact that I could do my degree 100% online and I could keep working. So for me, that was a big deal because a lot of us, like, I mean, I was almost in the workforce for 20 years at that point. I didn't want to stop the progress I had made in my career. So I didn't want to have to quit working to go to school full time. So I was able to do it because Yorkville let me do it online 100%. So as I was flying around the country and doing all this stuff for corporate, in the hotel at night, I'm doing my homework or I'm working with my classmates and still able to fulfill all the obligations for the degree, right? So when the pandemic hit, I, having always been a huge proponent for access to education, get it online, get it digital, we were already in the process of putting that in place in the background for our clients that were not here in Ontario, or maybe they weren't even in the country. So we were providing access to the education and training we did that way. And we just had to ramp it up. So we had to put everything online, do the Zoom calls, do the digital learning. And it's part of why we were able to continue working and continue serving clients is because we did that pivot. And I think that's sort of the highlight of what's come out of this at the moment for a lot of businesses is not to be afraid to pivot, not to be afraid to do something a little bit different.
You, in our conversation just leading up to this live interview, you also mentioned a second important point, which you are demonstrating today, and that's don't be afraid to be seen.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit so our audience today is business students, is business faculty. So can you talk to them a little bit about getting over that fear and why it's important to be seen?
Yeah, I think this is probably one of the biggest aha moments that hit us. So again, a lot of us in our professional or academic or corporate careers, we feel that my LinkedIn page is enough. I might have a corporate photo that sits on LinkedIn that's been there for 13 years and I haven't changed it. And that's it. Like if you want to know about me and what I do and who I am, you check out my LinkedIn page and that's what you get. The thing is though, things have shifted and you need more than just a LinkedIn page with a little bit of your history. People want to do business with people they know, like, and trust. And because we have the ability to research and do due diligence on companies we want to work with or people we're looking to hire, you need to have a bit more presence than just a resume page. And really, LinkedIn is a networking site, but it's your digital resume. What we're seeing now is, and dependent on industry, and it's funny, one of the guests on our show actually helps college graduates move from college to their career. And he made a good point in one of our episodes that depending on the industry that you're in is going to determine what kind of visibility you want to have. Meaning, if you're in the arts and entertainment industry, like if you're a film student, outside of your LinkedIn, maybe you have a YouTube channel where you're putting up your work or you're talking about the industry and adding your commentary to it. That's advantageous. If you are a doctor, maybe you have a website where you're writing articles and blogs and adding your expertise and your voice to the conversation. What's happened now in terms of visibility, especially because we can't network in person, for those of us that have not been comfortable online, we need to get over that hump of not being seen. Or those people that have a LinkedIn page and don't even have their picture up. At minimum, I need to see your face. I need to see you're a real life person, you're a human being that I would want to work with, right? So the message and the conversation that we're starting to have with subject matter experts at the moment, for us at Bare Slate, but then at large, you need visibility. You need to somehow add your voice and expertise to the conversation that's happening. And it's more than just responding to other people's thought leadership on LinkedIn, on Instagram, on Facebook. You want to be adding to the conversation in a strong way because it illustrates your thought leadership. Like I said, I keep saying thought leadership. So for example, another area where we have pivoted is because we have so much background and expertise and experience in doing video and online learning and podcasts, etc., we've started producing them for other thought leaders. So for example, if you're an accountant that wants to talk about accounting practices, whether it's personal or professional, you can have a podcast that adds your voice, and you don't have to worry about learning how to produce it, learning how to do it yourself. You just come to us and give us your audio talking about the wonderful points you want to get out. We make it happen for you. If you are a lawyer, we work with a lot of lawyers, that wants to talk about the CERB and what's happening with taxes right now and what you need to do. Maybe you want to do a YouTube channel talking about that area of expertise, but you still want to be a lawyer. You don't want to be a videographer. So these are small ways that you as a leader, as a student of business, can add your voice and be seen instead of hiding. We're used to hiding. We can't hide anymore.
Especially not in this current reality where
exactly.
it's Zoom all day, every day.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
when we're talking about being seen and putting yourself out there and having a presence on LinkedIn and writing articles, is there anything, Nicole, that you would say is a no-no in your online visibility? Is there anything that we shouldn't be doing as business professionals?
Yeah, I mean, I think the same advice stands now as it did back in the days when Facebook was new. And for any of us that are over the age of maybe 35 plus, if you've gone through the practice of screening people and hiring people for a position, if you've ever been a leader, you need to hire people, you do your due diligence. And I can remember back in the day where I was looking at someone's Facebook page, or I was looking at their LinkedIn, but I was looking to see how much information I could get about what kind of person this is. And we were always told back before LinkedIn was as prominent as it is now, don't post things online that if your parents would be embarrassed, if your future self would be embarrassed, wouldn't want to see that, just don't do it. And the same thing goes for yourself as a business professional, because what we have to understand, I think even more deeply, is the fact that your personal reputation is your brand, is your presence, and the way you speak and act and interact online. And this can be a Twitter feed. This could be a Reddit thread somewhere deep. How you conduct yourself online matters. We can either detract in a negative way or we can add in a positive way. So truly, if you don't want something to come back and bite you in the butt, just like we're told, don't write an email when you're angry. Don't type when you're angry and frustrated, right? You just want to make sure you're presenting yourself in a way that you would be proud of 10 years from now, if somebody was looking for you.
Yeah, that's pretty sage advice. So being out there, being visible online, doing business virtually also requires you to stay current in terms of what the world is doing, in terms of how they're networking, how they're interacting. What would you say to all our students who are watching now about how can you stay current? Like, how do you make sure you're current?
Well, I think there are a few ways that you can do that. I mean, the number one way is to always be learning, and just by the fact that you're in this program right now or you're affiliated with this school means that you are a learner. And when it comes to new technology, new ways of doing things, new ways of doing business, it's important to, first step is to be aware of what's going on. So what's funny, there's a lot of information right now about Zoom fatigue and video media fatigue and video meeting fatigue. But what's interesting is for those of us that have been doing business online for the last decade, this isn't new information for us. Like Slack isn't new, Teamworks isn't new, Zoom, Skype, Google Hangouts. These are all mediums that have been around for a very long time. And I found it really interesting that even some of my colleagues that were formerly in corporate environments with me didn't really know what YouTube was, other than they would see the odd video. They didn't understand that they were channels and accounts that you can interact and network with people. They didn't know what Slack was, or they weren't familiar with anything outside of a Microsoft environment. And what's interesting is that when you just stay up to date, and I don't mean you need to know everything inside and out, because there are so many platforms and so many things that you could be learning about all day long, that could be your job. But ways to communicate with each other, ways to do work, especially now. A lot of the presentations and talks that I used to do to CEO groups was around the importance of getting to understand the virtual world and doing business online, having remote teams, how to engage and talk to one another and still do collaborative work, how to lead online. And unfortunately, a lot of the businesses that sort of drag their heels, if you would, or were sort of sitting on the fence, were pushed in March, and now they're learning as they go. But taking the time just to do a scan, like look up every week or so and see what's out there. What's new in communication? What's new in technology? What are some of the skills I'm going to need as a business leader that are coming down the pipe that I don't have right now? Another interesting guest that we had on the show, her name is Christine Mitchell, and she's the car lady. And obviously that's an in-person type of role. She does car clinics for new car owners. How does the oil work? What's your schedule? How do you rotate your own tire? Like whatever you need to do, right? But one thing she said was because of the shutdown, she can't do in-person teachings. So she's teaching herself new skills. Crazy, right? She's learning how to use social media effectively. She's figuring out how to do these calls and how to record and just improving her skill set so that she has that in her arsenal down the road, because things have changed. And I don't see that they're going to go back to the way they were. It's going to be a new normal. So I think just the importance of learning and staying current with what's going on is super important. I think it's important to remember that we can't stay in sort of the Microsoft bubble. Mm-hmm. There's more than Word, there's more than Teamworks, there's more than, that environment. So there's a lot going on that we need to pay attention to.
Yeah, and I mean your car clinic individual is a great example because it's that's kind of an obscure business that she runs, but that concept applies across the board. Like I have a Pilates instructor and she's had to pivot her entire business. Yes. Now she does, really super hyper tailored exercises for that particular audience. Yeah. Good. So also it's important, you mentioned, to continue, even though we're socially distant, to mm-hmm. continue to network. That's really important when doing business virtually. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So, and again, it comes down to a few things. So for a lot of us, LinkedIn is where we network, and networking means sending a request to be a connection and that's it. Okay, I networked. Or it's sending a message to someone saying, hey, you work at Coca-Cola. I would love to work there. Can we have a call? That's not networking. Or, hey, I have this for sale. Can we jump on a call? That's not networking. Networking at the end of the day, whether it's in person or virtually, is relationship building. So it is having conversations online with people, respectful, just like you would if you were in person. It's maybe on their Facebook account. Maybe you're talking about the topic they're passionate about. Again, if you're two accountants, one in BC, one in New Brunswick, and you're talking about how the federal government and changes that are happening affect each province, you can connect with one another and build your network of relationships online. I mean, for me, my new Twitter account, like I've had a second account, is mostly lawyers. And I'm following what's going on in the world of law, and I'm asking questions and I'm making comments, and it's just getting to know people digitally, because eventually, once you can meet in person, you've already built that rapport and you have some understanding of who that person is. And it's especially important right now to build relationships so that when we do go back to doing business, whatever it looks like after, there is some sort of foundation for a conversation. I already know that I like you, and Erin, I know what she does at Yorkville. And if I have someone I want to refer from a business perspective, I know who they need to talk to. But if I didn't know you and I'm like, okay, communications, hi, Erin, my name's Nicole and I'm this, and I would like you to talk to, it's out of left field and no one likes that. Right. Exactly. So it's just building relationships, and you can do it online.
And it's, you know, even especially now, having those relationships is really important. Having just those candid conversations and, you know, just staying connected with your industry. We're getting questions. I didn't even mention this to all our participants. Please, our reason for having Nicole here today is so that we can pick her brain and tap into her expertise around how to do business virtually. And so ask your questions, put them in the Q&A function at the bottom of your Zoom screen. If you're watching us on YouTube, I'm not monitoring those questions, but we will. I'm not monitoring that yet, but we will loop back and Nicole and I will make sure we get those questions answered as well. So the first question, it just relates to your starting your business. And did you, Adrian wants to know, did you spend a lot of time and money to on your brand when you were starting your business?
Good question, Adrian. Thank you. One thing I will say that, and this is something that I told Erin I wanted to make sure we highlighted, is that the foundations of business always apply. It doesn't matter if you are traditional, meaning brick and mortar in person, or if you are virtual. Now, the only difference when it comes to your business is where you're doing that business. So for example, if I was producing a podcast for one of the lawyers in town, and normally they would come into our studio, which we used to have actually in downtown Toronto, and we would do all of that in person, great. There's a cost associated with that. You still need to know the cost associated with that. Now that we're doing everything virtually, we still need to know the cost of all the pieces. I mean, it's business 101. It's what's coming in, what are the expenses, what's your overhead, what's going out, what's your bottom line. When it came to starting my consulting agency, prior to when I became the managing partner at Bare Slate, and same thing for them, your presence online starts with all of the things that I was talking about, which by the way are free, F-R-E-E, grazie for those in Quebec, free. It costs nothing to have a Twitter account, a LinkedIn account, a YouTube account, a Facebook account. These are all free mediums where you can add your voice, which develops your brand. And one thing that people sort of struggle with, I think, is understanding how that happens online. But what I like to do is give an example of this. If I became the franchise owner of a Tim Hortons restaurant, and it's my new business, and I'm just going to open the door and everyone's going to come in and everything's going to be great because I'm Tim Hortons, is not how business works in the real world. You need to tell people that you're there. You need to promote. You need to have the sidewalk boards. You need to have a little bit of advertising. You have to do flyers. You need to let people know you exist. And the same is true online. Just because I have a website, just because I have a LinkedIn page, just because I have a YouTube channel, doesn't mean everyone is going to know that I exist. The last time I checked, I think there was like, I don't know, a ridiculous amount of minutes per minute uploaded to YouTube. And if you tried to watch everything, you'd be behind within an hour by like weeks. You have to let people know that you're there. And this ties back into what I was talking about being visible, which means if you're an engineer and you're a new college grad and you are looking for work, trying to blindly submit resumes online to 250 places is a gamble. You want to have some sort of presence so people know you're there. So for my business, I knew the importance of putting out information would eventually attract the right clients to me, the right sort of visibility to me and to our business, so that people would know who I was. Especially, and I'll say this, since I started my business 6 years ago, I think maybe I've had 1 or 2 local clients. Everyone else has been in the States or on the West Coast, some on the East Coast. Because I'm online and visible in a professional way, I like to think, people find me and they come to me. So in terms of the cost associated with starting my business and getting myself out there, it cost whatever $250 to register as a sole proprietor. And I opened every free Facebook, social media account I could and just started putting information out, just adding my voice. That's where you start. It's
building the
$0.
trust,
Yes.
building trust with your audience too. Yeah. So I have another question here about what are the objectives to be undertaken for a successful business online? Do you think you can speak to that? I think business objectives
So when
online
you say, and who asked the question?
Rajdir.
Thank you, Rajdir. Now, when you say objectives, what I get from that is, what is your purpose? I'm guessing.
Yeah, like I think what they're asking for is how do you identify a good goal for a virtual business?
I mean, the goal of the goal of any business should be to serve a specific customer, client, population, community. Like, who are you helping? Who are you the solution for? So any good business, and this is the other thing, just because you have a business idea or just because you are working in an organization doesn't mean it's the right fit for the right crowd, the right customer, the right client. You need to know who you are serving. And I've noticed that the typical reason why businesses don't succeed is because you're offering the wrong product or service at the wrong time to the wrong people. So a lot of times what I find individuals do, and I'll just speak as an entrepreneur for 1 second, is you think, oh, I have this great idea. I think this is going to be great. People need this particular product or service. And without doing any due diligence, any work, basically without talking to people and asking them what they want or need, we go ahead for 6 months to a year, spend all of our time, energy, and money, build the thing, put it in front of the people, and the people go, but that's not what we want. And it's wasted time and resource, right? So what you want to do instead is ask, ask, ask. And this is the part that a lot of organizations and business owners look at to be a bad thing because it's time intensive. But if you put in the work in the beginning, you save yourself all of the rework on the other side. And this is true whether it's a physical business or one online. Remember, online business versus in-person business is just location. Business principles and the foundation still apply no matter what. I hope that answered.
Yeah, that was perfect. That was perfect. Oh my goodness, these questions. We have a lot of aspiring entrepreneurs in our audience today. What kind of planning goes into starting a business of your own?
Oh, there's 2 answers to this. First is you need to know what you're doing in terms of exactly what I just said. Who are you serving? Who is raising their hand saying, I need a solution to this? There's enough people that after your costs have been calculated, you're like, yeah, that's worth my time and money because I'm going to actually make money. Because the whole point of having a business is to generate profit. And there's a big difference between revenue and profit. Hopefully we know that as well. You have to know who you're serving. And it's lovely that there's such a spotlight on entrepreneurship right now. I mean, if you think about it, way back before probably the industrial era, a lot of people worked for themselves. People were small business owners. We didn't have these huge multinational global organizations, right? So it's sort of that muscle that a lot of us didn't develop. Can you develop it? Absolutely. I will tell you though, that being a business owner, and I cannot impress this enough, comes down to your mindset, meaning as the business owner, as the entrepreneur, you are responsible for absolutely every single element, every failure, every loss, every up, every down. It's all you. So you can't turn around and blame a boss that you didn't get a raise. You can't turn around and blame a colleague if a client was lost. You can't get upset at someone like your IT, you are marketing, you are sales, you are fulfillment, you are all of it until you get to a point where you can bring in help. So mindset, when it comes to entrepreneurship and even in business, is number 1. You need to have a positive mindset because there are going to be a lot of downs, a lot of bumps, a lot of hurdles. And if you can't pick yourself up and be personally accountable for your outcomes, that's where people really stumble. Now, the cool thing about entrepreneurship is that you are responsible for every single element, decision, up and down. You control everything, which is cool. So when I had my corporate career, I had board members and, senior leadership teams and a lot of people that had to make decisions. It's kind of cool when you're the business owner or managing partner, you get to make those decisions. The other cool thing is, even though in my first year or two of business, I didn't make anywhere near the salary I made, but I earned and found and sought out and fulfilled every dollar I earned. So for me, it actually meant more. So for entrepreneurship, I cannot stress enough, it's mindset and personal accountability, because it's all you, baby, nobody else.
That's great. That's great. So you were dealing with clients prior to the current reality. You were dealing largely with your clientele virtually. And
yeah, a mix.
So you had that kind of existing already. Can you speak? This is a question from Prince Deep, and he is asking, what are the benefits that you see to doing business virtually?
Prince Deep, correct? Thank you for the question. The benefits to working virtually are many. Again, if you go into it with the right mindset. So the difference between doing business in person versus virtually really comes down to how you manage your time and an understanding of what tools can make things smoother, better, faster, and easier for you. Now, if I had not been open and willing to learn all of the different skills I had to develop in order to work virtually with clients, I wouldn't have had the opportunity to work with some very large health institutions out of BC. I wouldn't have been able to work with the government. I would not have been able to work with an amazing group of lawyers down in the US. I have had clients that were overseas. It has allowed me to do business anywhere, where prior to that, if I had just said, nope, my identity is I work with people in person, that means I've just restricted my entire client pool to who I can get to within a few hours drive. And I'm not able to serve people that have a need for my service because I said, no, I'm not doing it online. I'm not comfortable on camera. I don't want to use some of the project management software. I prefer to do it this way. Again, it really came down to mindset, and the benefit is genuinely, I can work with anyone anywhere that speaks English. I can help you. Like if you're in the middle of, I don't know, Germany and you speak English and you want to do a podcast because you're an amazing engineer, let's go. No problem.
Amazing. Are there skills that are more relevant given the current climate in the business world? Are there any skills, like if somebody was going to say, I should, spend some focused energy learning more about X, Y, or Z, what would you tell them?
Yeah, I think there's two sides to that. There's sort of the, again, mindset side, where it's a skill to learn how to manage your time effectively. Now, the elephant in the room, in every business right now, is the fact that if you are a parent, plus you're still working or you're going to school, you have all kinds of full-time jobs in front of you. And depending on the age that your kids are at, they need more intense supervision and support and help than some of the older kids might, or if they have special needs. So there's a lot of dividing our time and attention right now. So time management has become beyond important right now. The other thing too I've noticed is, even though we're all completely burnt out on Zoom calls, the underlying problem is actually our inability to manage our time effectively when we're in meetings to begin with. I saw an article of someone saying that she was totally burnt out on Zoom because she has 10 meetings a day and she's tired of being on Zoom. And I went, okay, 10 meetings a day? When are you doing work? When are you having lunch? So we're not managing our time effectively. So that's number one. It's the core skills that I talked about. You need to be able to manage your time, stress management. You need to be accountable. So those are some things that you would want to practice building the habit of, because they directly translate to how successful or not successful you are in life or business. When you can,
let me interrupt you before you get to number two, because I
sure.
know you have a second point. So
Yeah.
with time management, give our friends here a couple tactics. How do you make sure you have a lunch? How do you do you block time,
Sure.
or what do you do?
Yes. Yeah, so I actually wrote an entire course. Well, Bare Slate has a course, but I had one prior to that as well on time blocking. If you have not tried time blocking, please try it. For some people, it will make the biggest difference. Now, the caveat here, some tactics, hacks, techniques, recommendations will work for some people and not for others. So there isn't a one size fits all. What works for me is time blocking. I live and die by my calendar. And I started this a few years ago. It doesn't matter if it's personal, if it's dinner with my husband, I'm going to my in-laws, or I have a meeting that I have to do. It's all in my calendar. If it's not in my calendar, it's not happening. It also allows me to block out time in my calendar in advance that no meetings can be booked before 10 a.m., which means I have time to have breakfast, clear my head, look at my day, get my thoughts together, mentally prepare for what's going to happen. I don't do meetings before 10 a.m., period. It makes me more productive. I don't do meetings after 3 p.m. I have the middle of the day between 12 and 1 blocked off. These 3 blocks. Make sure that I'm not overbooked. I actually have time to eat, because another thing as an entrepreneur, if you love what you do, you forget to eat. You block it out in your calendar. And on Saturday, if I'm doing groceries with one of my girlfriends, it's in my calendar. In my calendar, and it has been here since I started my business, on every Sunday, I have 3 hours blocked out to do goal setting and taking a look at what's coming up in the week. It just gets it out of your head and onto something, so you have that organization. Some people like to do it physically, like on pen and paper, some digitally. But time blocking is all about time protection. People think you need to manage all of your minutes, but really it comes down, especially now, you want to protect your time, protect your downtime fiercely, protect your family time. Yeah. The other skill, I was going to say to answer your question.
Yeah, sorry, I interrupted you, because
okay.
I mean, it's so important.
That's okay.
Because otherwise your day will fill with, especially since we don't have to travel. It's Zoom.
Yep.
Zoom.
Yes,
Okay,
and it's
other
boundaries,
skill.
Right? Well, okay, so then boundaries are a skill as well. So setting those boundaries for how many meetings you accept. Practice saying no. It's okay to say, no, I'm not attending that 13th meeting this week. I'm good. I have stuff to do. Some of the technical skills you may want to brush up on are learning how to properly use social media platforms so that you can communicate and network and interact with other individuals. Understanding how some of this technology works. What are the benefits of Slack? Why am I using a asynchronous platform? Why am I needing a real-time conversation platform? Why would I want to do that instead of email? I have to tell you, and I also wrote a course on this, get out of email, like enough with the email. That's a whole other thing. A lot of this comes down to boundaries and protecting your time so that you have time to do the things you love and enjoy and can take a look at what's going on. So for example, a friend of mine, love her to death, habitually works 12-hour days. So when I say something to her like, hey, have you checked out this new platform or seen what's going on over here? It's like, no, I just finished working and it's 9 o'clock at night. We need to get better at setting boundaries and sticking to them. That's where our personal accountability comes in, so that we can go check out YouTube. How does it work? Oh, there's channels. I can learn things. I can subscribe. I can comment. It's important to stay up to date for those things for your business.
Yeah, of course. So LoveJot has a question here, and they're asking how to arrange business meetings. And this came right after our talk of networking. So I'm thinking they're asking you for a little bit more on how you approach maybe having a meaningful meeting with somebody in business.
Sure. The first thing is going to be what I recommend. Again, it comes down to time blocking. Make sure it works for you in your calendar. Don't say yes to every meeting at every time and it's 8 p.m. because like have some boundaries for yourself. If you're an entrepreneur, especially. When it comes to your meetings, I have a few rules that's helped keep me sane. If you get a meeting request, there's no agenda. You don't know why you're going to be attending. You don't know what's expected of you. You don't know what the outcome is supposed to be. There isn't a point. Do not accept that meeting. In return, if you are sending a meeting request to clients, prospective clients, I mean, you have to know what kind of meeting you're having. Do not send a meeting request without an agenda and letting people know what's expected of them, especially now. This has been true forever, and we're not very good at doing that. But if you are a business owner, especially if you're in the entrepreneur space, you need to be organized and respect other people's time as much as you protect your own. They need to know why they're coming, so you need to let them know. And when you're in the meeting, stick to your agenda. Stop having a 20-minute quick catch up to make a decision and you're there for 3 hours because the meeting did this all over the place. We don't do that anymore. No.
That's great advice. That's great advice. So Fritz has a really interesting question. Do you think that a good entrepreneur is someone who has already worked for someone else? Or can you be an entrepreneur without having had that experience of working for someone else?
Yeah, totally. You see both sides of it, right? You see people that didn't go to college have amazing businesses. Some people just have that natural inclination to figuring out how to give people what they want. And that's really, again, what it comes down to. Are you giving people what they want? Because when you give someone what they want, they're going to give you money for it in exchange, and that is business. So while I think it's valuable in some spaces to have worked for other businesses, and as valuable as my business education was and is, foundations of accounting and marketing and some of those foundational pieces that are super important that you may not otherwise know without learning the hard way. The actual act of doing business, you have to do it. I mean, sitting here and talking about opening your business or offering a product or service online is great in theory, but you have to actually go ask questions, go and talk to people, start doing a few things with clients, figuring out your price point. I mean, the only way to actually do it is to do it. Do it.
That's great. Do you have any books you would recommend?
I do.
They also ask, have you written any books? You write a lot in the form of articles and blogs. Have you written a book?
No, I have not. There may or may not be something my business partner's working on. I would love to. Honestly, my focus at the moment is video. I love video, especially right now because people are like, oh, there's video. We can see each other. It's like, yes.
Wonderful, yeah.
It's funny to the point now where if somebody wants to have a meeting with me and they say, what number can I call you at? I'm like, call. Where's the Zoom link? Give me the Skype. Like, I want to see your face. I mean, have phone call. Yeah. What do you mean? The books that I would recommend, there is one, the name is escaping me at the moment. Shoot, I'll find it.
Well, yeah, you can find it. And we can also let our viewers know after the fact what it is.
Yeah, and I can put it under the YouTube live once it's done. I'll put it in the comments. Yeah.
Oh, and people are just saying that they really appreciate this talk and it's really helpful. Do you have any ideas for a direct salesperson? I'm not sure if you can answer that.
Ideas for a direct salesperson, meaning networking, generating sales. Yeah. Honestly, depending on what it is you're selling, find the social media platform where your customers live and go live there.
Perfect.
Truly.
That's from Vanessa. Vanessa, that's good advice.
Well, and here's the thing too, that I highly recommend. This is something I picked up from Gary Vaynerchuk years ago. It doesn't matter what platform you like to use. What matters is you're in front of the eyeballs of the people that you need to be in front of. If it's Snapchat, go be on Snapchat. If it's TikTok, go be there. If you're selling, 13 to 17-year-old sneakers, go be where those eyeballs are. It doesn't matter. If you spend all day long on LinkedIn when really your audience are teenagers and the parents are the buyers, you need to figure out that information so you can go be there. And when they move, you move with them. Don't stay stuck on a platform just because you like to use it. It's my best advice.
Yeah, that's great advice. So I'm getting a lot of comments in the Q&A asking, now this is not for you, Nicole, but I just want to let everybody know so I don't have to go through and reply to each of you. There seems to be a lot of interest in our specialization in project management amongst the people who are watching today. If you would like to know more about that specialization, my advice is to contact your program advisor, ask them to tell you a little bit more about that. Or if you don't know who your program advisor is, you can email me and I'll connect you with them. My email is ehatfield@yorkvilleu.ca. I can connect you with your program advisor. If you don't have a program advisor, I can connect you with an admissions advisor that knows more about that program. Supply chain management is very interesting though, the little that I do know about it, but it is not Nicole's area of expertise. So we're gonna-
It's not, but it'll be interesting to see what happens with all of the trade and restrictions, especially with the virus. So supply chain's about to get really local.
Yeah.
Which
it's
is
an
good.
Interesting field to be in, I'm sure, right now. Do you advertise your business or do you just do it organically on social?
We are on social media. We currently we don't do any paid advertising at the moment. Everything is organic. Again, because my business partner and I spend a lot of time focused on building relationships online. I mean, we did this before, but we're actually speaking to people. So it's like I said at the beginning, it's more than just liking someone's Instagram post. It's more than just sending oh, that's great. It's actual conversations. And what's interesting is since we started the Ask More, Get More show, it's opened up even more doors to say, hey, I like what you're doing. I really enjoy your perspective. Can you come on our show and talk to us a little bit more about that? That'd be great. So yeah, everything at the moment is organic. We're just putting the information out. We're sharing as much as possible. We both firmly believe that the more you share, the more you get back. Yes, at some point, will we start paid advertising? Probably. But at the moment, it's more about giving and sharing and what can we add that's positive to the business community and the conversation at the moment. So I just wanted to wrap around to the person that asked the question about the book. I haven't.
Yes,
I
please.
found it. My personal favorite is The Art of Innovation. It's a industrial design company in the US. They've been around forever. I think they did the first Apple computer, but it's by a company called IDEO. It's IDEO. The author's Tom Kelly with Jonathan Littman. The Art of Innovation. This book is older, but I reread it once a year because it's all about looking at existing problems, products, processes in a new way. How can we fix it? How can we improve it? How can we make it better? What's not working anymore? If that's causing problems, can we chop it off? The other book that is really good and I think would be important for those looking to move from an employee to an entrepreneur is The E-Myth. That's by Michael Gerber. And the title, there's a ton of them. He has a whole series. So it's The E-Myth Revisited, Why Most Small Businesses Don't Work and What to Do About It. And in that book, he talks about, again, a lot of mindset, the importance of being a tactician and moving to leadership. Because a lot of people will say to themselves, I'm an accountant, I'm a rock star, I'm not being appreciated here at my big number accounting firm, I'm gonna go out on my own. And what you fail to realize is just because you're an amazing rock star accountant doesn't mean you're an amazing rock star marketer, business owner, IT like it's all those things, right? So the E-Myth Revisited was a really, really great book just to give you some perspective. I will say, please do not get caught in the cycle of read, learn, watch. You have to do.
Yeah.
Theory's wonderful. Seeing what other people have done is wonderful, but you have to do it yourself. That's the only way to learn. Go do it.
I've actually read E-Myth, and I'm not an entrepreneur or, it is a very applicable concepts there. So this is nice. Joyce must be, I have a comment here from an individual named Joyce, who maybe is not currently a student, but she just says, Nicole's energy is contagious, and you make me want to start the program right away.
If you're looking at the BBA, do it.
Did you have a favorite course, or like looking back on it, was there anything that you're like, wow, that really affected me in my current life? A mentor, a course, a text?
My professors were amazing. You want to talk about networking? I have every professor on LinkedIn. We're connected. I say hi. I touch base. I ask them questions. Every individual that was in my cohort, we're all connected. I still text some of my business school partners that we did projects on. Like, we stayed connected. There is no difference between, and I've been to college a few times. I've done the in-person, lived on campus, and did virtual. I have the same network and same connections built on each one. And when I went back to get my business degree, I was still in a corporate position. So it was directly applicable. I have to say, though, that the business program is applicable, even if it's just applicable in life. Just looking at how to manage finances, which is about to be a hot topic, because the debt load that a lot of organizations were taking on prior to the pandemic was already reaching a critical mass. And when it comes to business, the number one rule is don't bury yourself in debt, because then you're hoping you're going to be able to pay it off. Don't do that. So a lot of the principles and the ways to think and look at business are directly applicable to your house. You run your house like a business. You have a budget. You have money over here for groceries. You have money over here for entertainment. You have money over here for the overhead costs of running. So it's the same thing. So it's a wonderful program. And thank you for saying that. That's very sweet. I try to be an optimistic person.
No, you have great energy. John is asking kind of a similar question. John says, I'm very impressed with your presentation. I'd hope to make use of your services and get into the marketplace with a blog or a website or a guide. Where can people find you? Where can we consume your content that you're creating?
All the things. All right. So on YouTube, that's where our Ask More, Get More show comes out 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Today's show is Dr. Vibe, which is awesome. He's an award-winning. Okay. He's great. So on YouTube, the channel is Bare Slate. So BARE space SLATE. You can find me on LinkedIn under Nicole Girouard. You can find Bare Slate on LinkedIn, Bare Slate on Facebook, Bare Slate on Twitter. Bare Slate is everywhere. So you can reach out. Please connect with us on LinkedIn. We're happy to have conversations, happy to connect. Yeah, any way that we can help.
If we're going to go back and take a look at one of your Bare Slate shows of Ask More, Get More, give us your one, like who's your favorite one? Not that you should define a favorite, but tell us what one to watch.
One that was super popular was, we had a cognitive neuroscientist on the show. She is a professor at one of the prestigious colleges in British Columbia. She was the dean of psychology there. She actually left academia and put out her own course and explains the neuroscience behind mindset, law of attraction, which has to do with goal setting and attaining your goals. Her name is Naza Nalani. She was wonderful. She's on the channel. We have some wonderful psychologists that are on that talk about parenting and children during the quarantine. We had an amazing nurse that became an entrepreneur. I used to work with him. His name is Daniel, and he just started an app with access for those with type 2 diabetes across Canada. There are 11 million pre and diagnosed type 2 diabetics in Canada. Wild. He's helping. I don't know. There's some really great ones on there.
Yeah. What keeps you
Yeah, they're all
motivated?
great.
You say you try to be optimistic. This will be my last question. I'll let you go after
Sure.
this, because we've
I'll
fully
come
consumed
back.
an hour in like no time. But just you say you're optimistic. We can feel your optimism and your energy. What keeps you optimistic and motivated and just out there doing your good work?
Um, that's a good question. Part of it, I think, is just the parents and family that I had. They always encouraged us to make mistakes, to fail, and to learn from it, which I think is super important today. We're not often told it's okay to make a mistake, it's okay to fail, especially in our corporate and education system, unfortunately. So yeah, I just was always encouraged to keep going. So I built, and I do believe, because again, we're so firmly focused on the psychology and business together at Bare Slate. I think that the optimistic and resilient mindset is a muscle that you need to build. And I focus every day on, okay, you know what? March hit, every single client that we had to do in-person work is gone in a matter of days. Now what do we do? So I just choose to focus on the possible and not what was lost. I'm not going to say it's great every minute of every day. Some things suck, and it's okay to say that. But I just choose to focus on the good stuff.
That's great. That's great
Yeah,
advice, Nicole.
thank you.
Well, I want to give you a heartfelt thank you for your time,
Of course.
for your energy, for your advice. Everyone, if you have questions that we didn't get to, you can throw them up on the YouTube post, the live stream that we successfully did. I pulled it up and
Yay.
it's working. So you can throw your comments up there and we'll get them addressed for you. So
I'll answer them in the comments for sure.
Nicole,
And then you
will
can
be
come and
there.
subscribe to Bare Slate.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, Nicole. And thank you, everybody,
Erin.
for joining us today. And we look forward to speaking with you again soon.